Hey, Gritty Kids. Welcome back to Gritty Kids Podcast. I am Miss Erin, and I am so happy you are here with me. Today, I am going to share a book that I think is perfect. The title is My Shadow is Purple. It is written and illustrated by Scott Stewart. Scott is incredible and has written and illustrated really inspiring, important books. Gritty Kids, I'm going to talk about words for a moment. You might hear me say those two words a lot, inspiring and important. They're two words that hold a lot of meaning for me, and I want to make sure you understand what I mean when I use them. The first word, inspiring, can you say that with me? Inspiring. Yeah, that means when someone does something amazing and it gives you a feeling inside like you want to also do something amazing of your own. Important, let's say that one. You probably hear that a lot. Important. Your grown-ups might tell you about a lot of things that are important, like getting enough sleep and eating healthy food and doing your schoolwork and being nice to your siblings. When something is important, it means that it will make a difference. When we make a difference, we change things in a good way. And remember, when we think about differences, we think about the goodness that comes from everyone being different and unique. When I use the word important to talk about books, I mean that this book is making a change in a really good way. Sometimes we call people who are making good change makers. The books we read together here on Gritty Kids Podcast are special. They aren't just books that I like, but they are books that are making a difference in the world. With that being said, I am so excited to tell you that one of my favorite change makers, the author and illustrator of My Shadow is Purple, Scott Stewart, is here to read with us. Welcome, Scott. If you would like to share the pronouns you use for yourself, you can, but you don't have to. I go by Miss Erin and use she, her pronouns.
Hello, thank you so much for having me. I'm super excited to be here. I use he, him pronouns, and you can just call me Scott.
Perfect. We are just honored to have you here. Well, before we get started, I want to let our listeners know what to expect during this episode. So as we read through the first time, we will stop and talk to you a little bit about the story. After we finish reading, Scott is going to answer a few questions I have for him. Then Scott is going to read through the book one more time without any interruptions. We will finish by letting you and your grown-ups know how you can learn more about Scott Stewart and his amazing change-making work. Just a reminder, if you hear this sound, that means I'm going to stop reading the author's words and use my own words to talk about the story. Then when I play this sound, it means I'm going to start reading the author's words again. If you hear this sound, that means I'm turning the page. If you are following along at home, you can turn the page with us. There are so many things I love about this book. I love that it rhymes. I love the illustrations. Scott, the way you drew these pictures is really impressive. Even though the lines in your drawings look simple, you make the characters show so much emotion and movement. I also love how you have used color in big and little ways. My Shadow is Purple, written and illustrated by Scott Stewart. My dad has a shadow. that's blue as a berry, and my mom's is as pink as a blossoming cherry. There's only those choices, a 2 or a 1, but mine is quite different. It's both and it's none. If theirs are straight, then mine is a circle. For my shadow's different. My shadow is purple. In these first few pictures, we see a happy family. A dad is cooking something on the stove while laughing playfully with the mom. The child is giggling at their parents, and a black kitty is curled up on the table. It looks like a lot of love. Behind the dad is a friendly shadow that is blue, and next to the mom, there is a happy shadow that is pink. I wonder if the child is thinking about gender when they are talking about these colors. Gritty kids, we know that colors aren't just for girls or just for boys, and that some people don't feel like a girl or a boy. That is called non binary. Purple is a fun color for a shadow to be. I notice a color clue, maybe, here on the first page. I notice that on the stove, under the pan of food the dad is cooking, there is a pink glow. My shadow loves playing with all sorts of toys, things loved by girls and things loved by boys. I dance with the pinks as they turn and they spin, and play sport with the blues as they lose and they win. I think our prediction might have been right. They seem happy playing and doing all different kinds of activities, even though we know that all activities and colors and toys are for everyone to enjoy. There are still some kids and grown-ups who don't understand that yet. They might think that certain toys and colors and activities are just for girls, like dolls and pink and ballet. They might think that other toys and colors and activities are just for boys, like superheroes and blue and sports. Our main character here looks content doing all of these different activities. We see them with their purple shadow following along, joining in all of the fun. Some of my friends think I'm simply confused, but the thing I love most is not having to choose. Some tell me I'm blue. Only blue can be strong. But my mom's strong too, so I think they are wrong. Some tell me I'm pink because pink's the most caring. But dad's always crying and loving and sharing. I love these illustrations. On the left, we see our friend holding up their ballet shoes in one hand and their soccer ball in the other. Their shadow is behind them, looking proud and confident. On the next page, we see their mom and her pink shadow working out and looking very strong, and their dad and his blue shadow watching a movie and crying. I'm going to read 2 sentences again from these pages because I think they are really important. The first one is, "But the thing I love most is not having to choose." And the second one is, "So I think they're wrong." I think this kid is pretty smart. They know that people might talk about ways people should be if they are a girl or a boy, but they realize that even if you do feel like a gender that fits into a category, we call that binary, you still get to be exactly who you are because those categories are really just made up anyway. Why can't I love sport and dancing and trains and ponies and glitter and engines and planes? Why must I choose and exclude all the rest? I love choosing both because both is the best. And now it is time for the greatest event. The school dance is here. The invite's been sent. I don't think the words on this page match exactly how our friend is feeling. The greatest event sounds like something fun, but as the envelope is delivered into the kid's house, they look worried, and their purple shadow looks very nervous. I wonder if it has to do with the invitation we see here on the next page. At a school dance, often people dress in fancy clothes, and often you will see girls in dresses and skirts and boys in suits. The invitation has only two colors on it, blue and pink. I'm ready to rock, and I'm feeling cute. My mom made my skirt, and my dad made my suit. Aw, yeah. This kid is so awesome. Gosh, I just love it. They won't let the binary categories keep them from being who they are and wearing what feels right to them. I bounce through the door and I gasp as I enter. The room's split in two, right down the center. Blue shadows go left and pink shadows right. Once we're split up, we'll kickstart this night. Everyone laughs as they head to their zones, and right in the middle, I'm left all alone. I look to the left where the shadows are blue. They wave me over, saying, "You are blue too." And I look to the right as I struggle to think. They call me over. "Come on, you are pink." The teacher walks up looking rather amused. "I know you are different, but now you must choose." My heart just starts racing and tears fill my eyes. I know I must choose, but I don't understand why. Mm, I feel sad right now with them. That must feel so confusing and frustrating. It is nice
Mm.
that the blues and the pinks want to include our friend, but when there isn't a place where we feel we belong, it can feel very lonely and sad. The room has gone quiet and everyone's looking. My cheeks are so red they feel like they're cooking. If I cannot be purple, then I cannot stay. I'll leave and go home, I quietly say. I slowly start walking. My legs are like jello. A voice breaks the silence. Okay, now we see our friend leaving and starting to walk home. Their purple shadow is already sitting on the steps alone. But, I wonder whose voice they hear. My shadow is yellow. My eyes open wide, my shadow it gawks. A child walks to the middle, looks up, and talks. There's more than two colors our shadows can be. I was too scared before, but blue is not me. I know from outside blue fits like a glove, but my shadow's yellow, which to me feels like love. Yes! I was really hoping something would be able to cheer up our friend and their purple shadow. This new friend has a yellow shadow. I love that they say their shadow feels like love. They turn with a smile and take hold of my hand. "Who wants to join us? There's room here to stand." At first, no one moves. Then, a hand's in the air. My shadow's as brown as a big grizzly bear. My shadow is red. Mine's silver. Mine's green. Mine's violet. Mine's orange. Mine's aquamarine. They all rush to join us, whatever their color. Blue, pink, and purple, and shadows called other. I look at each shadow, no two are the same. On each happy face, there's no trace of shame. Each different and special and fully unique. No color's stronger and no color's weak. The teacher comes over as we're joined as one. Whatever your color, start dancing. Have fun. Oh my gosh. What a perfect ending to this perfect book. Wow. Once all of the kids learned that they didn't have to pick between blue and pink, So many of them realized their shadow could be any color. Sometimes it just takes one person being brave to help other people feel like they can be brave too. I feel like the main character in this book is inspiring to all of the other kids at the dance and even to the teacher. Sometimes we get stuck in our thinking, gritty kids. You can be inspiring to other kids and grown-ups in your community. Be brave and share who you are and stand up for other people who are showing who they are. I think that you are all the best teachers and can help others understand how important it is to be, one more big word for you, authentic. Authentic. That means being true to yourself, even if you don't fit into a category, and not worrying about what other people will think or say. Before I start asking our brilliant author some questions, let's all say what color we think our shadow is on the count of 3. Ready? 1, 2, 3. Rainbow!
Yellow.
I heard a lot of really perfect shadow colors. Thank you for sharing, Gritty Kids. Scott, wow. What a special, wondrous, perfect book you have written and illustrated. You are very talented and very inspiring. I have a few questions for you, and then we would love to hear you read My Shadow is Purple all the way through. Sound
Fantastic.
okay?
Yeah,
All
this
right,
sounds great.
great. Okay, my first question is, when did you write My Shadow is Purple?
I wrote it a few years ago. It actually took me over a year to write this book.
Mm.
I wrote this book because I had another book called My Shadow is Pink. And just like you did at the end of that reading, whenever people would read My Shadow is Pink, they would say at the end of the reading, and what color do you all think your shadows are?
Uh-oh.
And the answers were always fantastic. They were
Mm.
rainbow with a unicorn horn and glittery gold. And I was in an event where I was listening to the person read my book. And at the end, they said, and everybody, what colors do you think your shadows are? Are they blue or are they pink? And
Mm.
in that moment, that person had limited every answer in the room. And so suddenly every child was like, oh, I'm blue or I'm pink. But I had never heard those answers from any other child after reading the book. And so I
Mm.
really wanted to make the point that your shadows don't have to be limited to the those two binary choices, those only two choices of blue or pink, that you can have and probably do have a shadow that is its own glorious color.
Mm. Love that. Okay, here's a really important one. Why do you have an accent? Where do you live and what time is it there?
I have an accent because I am from a country called Australia, which is
Mm.
all the way on the other side of the world. So I live in a city called Melbourne, which is at the bottom of Australia. And right now it is 11 a.m. What time is it there?
Here it is just about 7 p.m. So a lot of
Whoa.
greedy kids might be finishing up dinner or even getting started to get ready for bed. And it's Wednesday here, but
And
what
it's
day is it?
Thursday here.
What? That's incredible. That's incredible. I don't completely understand how that works, but that's really amazing. And I really like your accent. Do I
Thank
have an
you.
accent to
You
you?
to me, you have a very strong accent. So-
So Midwestern or just American?
uh,
Very strong
well,
American.
I have been to America enough times to identify your accent as a Midwestern accent.
Okay.
So it doesn't sound, whereas maybe 20 years ago, I might have just said, you sound American. Whereas
Sure.
now I say, you sound Midwestern American.
Yes. All right. Well, we really like your accent, and I'm very eager to hear you read the book and hear it rhyme with your accent. So, I think with our first question, when did you write My Shadow is Purple? You gave us some information maybe about why, but if you could tell us a little bit more. You wrote the first book, and then did you know right away that you were going to write another book, this book, or was it tell us a little bit about that process, if you will.
So I was originally going to write My Shadow is Pink and then a book called My Shadow is Blue.
Mm.
And My Shadow is Blue is actually coming out in March. So it's written and
Oh.
illustrated. But I was going to do those two books. And then when that moment happened at that reading where the person asked everybody if they had a blue or pink shadow, I
Mm,
realized that maybe My Shadow is Purple was a more important book to put out into the world. And so that's when I started working on it. And yeah, it's a funny thing to say that a book that is, this size took over a year to write, but I take a really long time with my books. I will write it in the whole thing in 15 minutes. And then I will spend a year just trying to make every single word in
mm,
in those 400 words, really, really important. And every single line make sense and say
mm,
exactly what I'm trying to say. Especially in a book like this, where there's a lot of meaning behind the
mm,
words and a lot of interpretations that people might have. And
mm,
so trying to make it as clear as to what I'm intending. And
mm,
then once I have written that, everybody who reads it can read it their own way and see their own
mm.
things and have their own meanings for the book. But I know that I spent the time trying to make it say exactly what I was wanting to say.
Mm. Wow, I love that. That's really an important skill as a writer, and I hope that gritty kids are listening and hearing that you can make a lot of meaning and take a lot of time, and it doesn't have to be so many words, that sometimes it's the words that you choose and how intentional you are that can be more important. So, what gave you the idea? I'm curious just about you shared with us earlier that you feel like a boy and a man, and there are some activities that you like to do that feel really good and true to who you are that maybe other people might perceive or think are for girls or for women. But did your personal experience as a boy who was maybe interested in some of these other activities that people didn't think were necessarily for boys, is that what inspired this book? Or was there something else, or was it a combination of factors?
When I was a child, I grew up in a family and an environment that was very, very, very strict on gender roles and gender stereotypes. Boys had to
Mm,
do certain things, girls had to do certain things. They didn't talk about non binary or trans
mm,
people. It was very, very strict as to what the expectations were for each of us. And I was a young boy who really thrived in the expectations that were given to me. I was a boy who was really, really good at sports, and like I loved playing sports, and I would always be talking about how it seems strange, these gender things and allowing people to only do certain things. It just felt a little bit strange. When I was maybe 8 or 9 years old, my mum had a book that had recipes for birthday cakes, and the book was split in half. the first half of the book was birthday cakes for boys, and the
Mm.
second half of the book was birthday cakes for girls. And
Mm.
at 8 or 9 years old, I scribbled out the boys and girls and wrote
Wow.
birthday cakes for everyone.
Wow.
And whether I wanted a cake that was in the section that was labeled for girls or not, I loved the cakes that were in the section for boys. I just thought that was such a silly idea. So when I was starting to play with the idea of a book called My Shadow is Purple, I have a lot of friends in my life who are non binary, and I started to speak to them a lot and started to hear about their experiences and started to get their opinions on how the book might look, and also get their opinions on if I was somebody who could or should write the book. And as the more research I did, the more conversations I had, the more time I spent with the idea of writing My Shadow is Purple, it started to become something really solid in my head and started to become something that I really felt strongly about writing. And I felt like I
Mm.
had really strong reasons for writing it. And I wrote it and I shared it with some of my friends who are non binary. And, I got a few things wrong and we made
Mm.
changes and we did
Mm.
more drafts and, tried again. And eventually I hit a point where everybody felt really seen and really included, and it felt like the book was really honest and also important,
Mm.
and also something that felt like it was able to come from me being who I
Mm.
am. Yeah, that's when the book started. Really just started to come to life.
Mm.
That all that process was
Mhm.
just the beginning of all the work
Mm.
of this book. So.
Mm. But it sounds like the spark was there when you were just a little kid, which is really cool because it kind of feels like this was what you were meant to do, that you maybe had an inclination when you were a kid that this was something really important. And I think it's really wonderful when kids can hear that. I think as grown-ups, it often feels like, well, we're grown-ups doing grown-up things, and when you grow up, what are you going to do that is different from what you're doing right now? And there's actually so many incredible things that kids are already doing that can be lifelong passions or jobs. And yeah, that's really, really neat. So thank you for sharing that story. I'm going to shift over a little bit from sort of the intention of the book to your process, which kids love hearing about and I love hearing about. So before I start asking you specific questions about your art, can you share, if you have an opinion, do you like drawing or writing more?
This is actually very easy for me to answer.
Mm.
I like writing a lot
Mm.
more than I like drawing. So, writing for me feels like, even when it's really, really difficult,
Mm.
it feels like joy. I
Mm.
love writing. There are times I'll be writing a story and I'm really stuck and it's really difficult, and I love it. I love the whole
Mm.
process.
Mhm.
Drawing, I really enjoy drawing. And my favorite part about drawing is when I have finished a drawing and I look at the drawing and I have this very strong joy and satisfaction that I did that. Like, I
Mm.
created that
Mhm.
piece of art. But while I'm drawing,
Mm.
while I am in that moment where I'm struggling to make it look how I
Mm.
want it to look, I find that
Mhm.
very, very difficult. So writing is
Mm.
my the thing that I enjoy more.
Okay, interesting. I can relate to all of that as well. And I feel like a lot of kids can feel that same frustration with drawing and kind of wanting it to
Hmm.
be perfect. Okay, so now I'm so curious. How do you make your art? I mean, basically, I just want to know everything about your art. So
Yeah,
I'll kind of I'm going to list off a couple questions, and I'll let you just share what you would like. But
go
I'm
for it.
curious about if this kind of illustrating is your main style of art, if you make other kinds of art, and how you made the illustrations for My Shadow is Purple.
Yeah, so I actually have this really fancy thing where instead of drawing on paper, I get to draw straight onto my computer. It's called a drawing tablet and it's bigger than my computer. It's this
Whoa.
really big thing, and I just put my special pen onto it and it draws directly onto the computer. Kind of like using an iPad. If the
Mhm.
iPad was 4 times as big and had these special things where you could make it look exactly like you're painting with paint and a paintbrush.
Wow.
So that's how I do it. I have a lot of friends who use paint and pencils and paper, and I love doing that. But whenever I'm working on a book, I always draw it straight onto the computer. I don't know why. It just works for me. It makes
Yeah.
it a little bit more fun for me. So what I tend to do is I tend to start with a thing called a storyboard. And what that is a really, really fast and rough and terrible looking version of every page. And I
Mm,
set a stopwatch and I give myself 1 minute to draw the page,
mm,
the entire page. And so any characters are only stick figures,
mm,
and the backgrounds are really, really rushed. Because what I tend to do when I'm drawing is if I say, oh, I need to put a person here, I will start going, oh, well, but their ear needs to look good, and but their arm, and
mm,
they're not quite perfectly posed.
mm,
And so I get really, really lost in those tiny details of the
mm,
drawings. And all of a sudden, 3 hours has passed, and I've drawn one person, and this thing takes forever. And so I always start with these really, really fast storyboards just to get an idea of the page. Because then I can say, actually, I don't really like what that looks like. Let me do another one. And it only takes 1 minute. I don't
mm,
really like that. Let me try another one. And so I get
mm,
the idea of what the page is going to look like. And then I set my timer for 10 minutes and I draw again a, a little bit slower, but still a really fast drawing. Like if it's a person, the stick figure body might have a little bit of size to it now, and the arms might be tubes instead of sticks, and the
mm,
background, rather than like a little square for a house, might actually have some windows in it,
mm,
and I then, because that's only taken me 10 minutes, I can see, so now, yeah, I do like what this drawing is going to look like. So
mm,
now I can move forward and really try to create exactly what I want it to look like. But up until that point, it's all just really rough and really fast and on a pencil, and just you're just getting the vibe of the thing.
mm,
And then once I
mm,
have that, then I essentially delete it all and I redraw it all slowly and trying to make it
mm,
look how I want it to look. And then I go in with my digital paint and I paint
mm,
all the colors in. And it's quite different from doing it like a painting, because this needs to have the text of the book in it. And so I
mm,
also need to think, where are the words going to sit on the page, and will they
mm,
be able to read the words if it's over the top of a paint over the top of a car or something, so I need to
right.
really think about all those different things while I
Mm,
paint.
mm, cool. Wow, that's really neat. So when you're drawing on your did you call it a tablet or
Yeah, drawing tablet.
note
Yep.
a drawing tablet? Okay. Are you seeing the the lines and the colors on a screen in front of you, or is it on the tablet that you're seeing it in real time?
Yeah, so it's actually on the tablet. So it's just
Oh,
like a really huge iPad with that you
wow.
use a paintbrush on,
Oh my God.
and
Whoa.
it's so cool. It's super cool. I actually
Mm.
did my first couple of books without it, and I saved up my money and I bought this really cool tablet, and I have loved using it every day ever since.
Oh my gosh. That's that sounds so fun. Before you used that, what was your medium?
Yep. So I still, for any books, I did it on the computer, but I had this tiny, tiny little pad, like this black box, and it was about the size of two phones put together.
Okay.
And I would draw on that, but I couldn't look at that because no pictures would go on there. I had to look up
Mm.
at the computer screen
Sure.
while I was drawing on that. And it was
Wow.
really difficult. It was
Yeah.
so hard.
Oh my
But that's how
gosh.
my first two books were drawn on that thing. So,
Wow.
yeah.
Oh my
Mhm.
gosh. And did you, as a kid, did you like to draw or paint, or did that come later?
I always really loved to draw, but I always had this sense that I always had this thought that my drawings weren't good enough, that everything I drew
Mm.
was pretty bad. And one day I got to meet one of my art heroes, somebody who I have always loved their artwork. They're amazing. They have helped create some of my favorite movies like Kung
Mm.
Fu Panda and How to Train Your Dragon and all those sorts of things.
What?
And I was saying to them, "Oh, your art is so incredible."
Mm.
And they said to me, "Oh, no, my art is terrible, but you should see this other person's art. Their art is amazing."
Mm.
And I realized in that moment, maybe everybody kind of has this little sense that, oh, that person is so good, but look at what I can do. Like, this isn't as good as theirs. But if we're all
Mhm.
feeling that, maybe we should just draw anyway and
Mm.
see what we can create. So I always kind of struggled feeling like my work wasn't good enough, and then once I just decided to do it anyway, I
Mm.
started being told by other people that my work was good enough, even though
Mm.
sometimes I feel like it's not in my own brain.
Mm. Thank you for sharing that. Wow. That's really, really insightful. What is the best part of your job as an author illustrator? And then I'd love for you to just, if you have anything else to share with our gritty kids who are listening, I feel like you've already shared so many insightful comments, but I think we'd love to hear kind of what is your favorite thing you get to do or that you love about your job as an artist and an author, and then anything else you'd love to send us off with.
Oh, the best part of what I get to do is that's a surprisingly difficult question. But when
Mm,
I was 7 years old, I was asked, "What do I want to be when I grow up?" And my answer was an author. And it
mm,
took me a really long time to become an author. I didn't become like an all day full time author until I was about 35 years old.
mm,
So I spent a really long time not being an author. But just being able to live my childhood dream every
mm,
day is absolutely spectacular. And if I had to say one thing for gritty kids to know, these are both such challenging questions,
mm,
but I would probably say that Sometimes we feel as kids and as adults that the things that we're doing and the things that we're thinking, that nobody has ever felt these things before and nobody's ever thought these things before, and we are strange because of the things that we think and the things that we feel. And having been on this earth for 40 years, and having met so many people who have been able to have really beautiful, deep conversations with, I realize that everybody kind of is having the same feelings and thoughts as well. And some people are really good at hiding those feelings, and some people are really good at expressing those feelings. And so, however you are feeling, however, whatever you are thinking, whatever your dreams might be, whatever your talents are, other people have those things too. And you should never think that you are not somebody who deserves to have the things that you want.
Wow. Thank you for sharing that. I think we all need to hear that, and I'm really grateful for you sharing that with us. Well, so many questions. We're so appreciative. I feel like we know so much about you now, and we can understand your book and you even better, which is fantastic. So now I'm so excited because you are going to read the whole book through. I won't interrupt you, and we're just going to listen to you read the book the way that you intended it to be
With an
read, and the
accent.
way that with the accent. Yes. I love it.
Okay. So, My Shadow is Purple, written and illustrated by me, Scott Stewart. My dad has a shadow that's blue as a berry, and my mum's is as pink as a blossoming cherry. There's only those choices, a 2 or a 1. But mine is quite different. It's both, and it's none. If there's a straight, then mine is a circle, for my shadow's different. My shadow is purple. My shadow loves playing with all sorts of toys, things loved by girls and things loved by boys. I dance with the pinks as they turn and they spin, and play sport with the blues as they lose and they win. Some of my friends think I'm simply confused, but the thing I love most is not having to choose. Some tell me I'm blue, only blue can be strong, but my mum's strong too, so I think they're wrong. Some tell me I'm pink, 'cause pink's the most caring, but dad's always crying and loving and sharing. Why can't I love sport and dancing and trains and ponies and glitter and engines and planes? Why must I choose and exclude all the rest? I love choosing both because both is the best. And now it is time for the greatest event. The school dance is here. The invite's been sent. I'm ready to rock and I'm feeling cute. My mum made my skirt and my dad made my suit. I bounce through the door and gasp as I enter. The room split in two, right down the center. Blue shadows go left and pink shadows right. Once we're split up, we'll kickstart this night. Everyone laughs as they head to their zones, and right in the middle, I'm left all alone. I look to the left where the shadows are blue. They wave me over, saying, "You are blue too." Then I look to the right as I struggle to think. They call me over, "Come on, you are pink." The teacher walks up, looking rather amused. "I know you are different, but now you must choose." My heart just starts racing, and tears fill my eyes. I know I must choose, but don't understand why. The room has gone quiet, and everyone's looking. My cheeks are so red they feel like they're cooking. If I cannot be purple, then I cannot stay. I'll leave and go home, I quietly say. I slowly start walking. My legs are like jello. A voice breaks the silence. My shadow is yellow. My eyes open wide, my shadow, it gawks. A child walks to the middle, looks up and talks. There's more than two colors our shadows can be. I was too scared before, but blue is not me. I know from outside blue fits like a glove, but my shadow's yellow, which to me feels like love. They turn with a smile and take hold of my hand. Who wants to join us? There's room here to stand. At first, no one moves, then a hand's in the air. My shadow's as brown as a big grizzly bear. My shadow is red. Mine's silver. Mine's green. Mine's violet. Mine's orange. Mine's aquamarine. They all rush to join us, whatever their color. Blue, pink, and purple, and shadows called other. I look at each shadow, no two are the same. On each happy face, there's no trace of shame. Each different and special and fully unique. No colors stronger and no colors weak. The teacher comes over as we're joined as one. Whatever your color, start dancing, have fun.
Yay! Oh, I loved hearing you read, Scott. I love the way your voice sounds, and I am so grateful for you spending time with us today. We love you and your book. Thank you again.
Thank you so much for having me. It's been such a privilege to be here and connected and getting to read you to all of your listeners.
Thank you. Well, if you would like to learn more about Scott Stewart, there are links at the bottom of this episode that a grown-up can help you open.
Thank you for reading with us.